She survived the surgery. That's what mattered, until it didn't. Her name was Emily. We'd been engaged for 8 months. We met through work. My company outsourced some legal consulting to her firm. We ended up working on the same client account for nearly a year. No photographer. No planning. I had a ring in my pocket, and I figured it was the right time. She looked at it, then at me, and said yes. We moved fast, booked a venue, talked about colors, discussed guest lists. The future. Her parents were thrilled. Mine didn't ask many questions. Everything felt set. Our conversations went from short emails to full lunch meetings. Then late calls. Then weekends. Somewhere between calendar invites and contract reviews, it turned into something more. She refused help at first. Said she was fine. That didn't last long. I managed appointments, took calls from doctors, researched her condition. She just focused on making it to the hospital when she was told. Fatigue. Nausea. At first, she thought it was stress. Maybe lack of sleep. Then came the fainting. They wheeled her out of the room just after 7 a.m. I stood with her mother in the waiting area. It took 4.5 hours. A doctor came out and told us it was successful. Complications were minimal. They'd removed everything. Her vitals were good. Then tests. Then more tests. The diagnosis wasn't mild. It was serious. Life-threatening. Surgery was the only real option. Sat through nurse rounds. She didn't talk much. No mention of us. No talk of the wedding. Not even small talk. But she opened her eyes when I said her name. The hospital gown still on, but she looked more alert. More present. I decided that was the moment. I asked her to marry me one evening after dinner at a quiet place near the marina. Then she got sick. It started small. Headaches. We put everything on pause. The wedding. The honeymoon plans. She told me, "You don't have to stay." Placed a water bottle on the table. Then asked, plainly, "Emily, would you still want to marry me?" Most days we didn't talk about anything beyond prescriptions, insurance, and follow-ups. The clock hit 2 a.m., then 3. She stared at the ceiling. I asked if she was okay. She didn't answer for a while. I didn't respond. I just stayed. Slight variation. I told her I'd be there. I moved into her apartment temporarily so I could help. In those months, our engagement changed. Conversations became shorter. More medical than romantic. Inside was a bottle of her favorite hand cream, some of her socks, and a paperback she once mentioned liking. I left it on the side table next to her bed. The night before surgery, she sat in bed, awake. I knew she wasn't sleeping. Neither was I. Then she said, "If I come out different, you don't have to stay." Same line. Morning came. They let me see her late that evening. She was hooked up to machines but awake. Her skin was pale. Her voice was weak. I didn't say much that day. Just stayed in the chair beside her bed. Over the next few days, she stabilized. I came every morning. Brought food she wouldn't eat. I figured she needed time. I gave her that. On the third day, she was sitting up. Her hair was tied back. Stored it with the rest of the things I didn't need. I sat next to her. She didn't answer right away. She turned her head and looked at me. Eyes clear, no confusion. She understood the question. Then came the pause. 5 seconds. 10. 15. She looked away. That was it. I stood up. I didn't say another word. There was a small gift bag beside my chair. She didn't move. I walked out of the room. The hallway was cold. Clean. Quiet. A nurse nodded at me. I nodded back. I left the hospital and didn't return. No calls from her. No follow-up. The ring stayed in my drawer for a few weeks. Then I put it in a box. That was the last time I saw Emily. Or so I thought. I didn't go back to the hospital. There was nothing left to say. No explanation needed. She paused. She turned away. I left. That was the last real moment between us. I didn't reach out. She didn't either. I assumed that was her answer. Over the next few weeks, I packed the things I had left at her apartment. A few shirts, some books, and the backup key I had on her counter. The apartment still looked the same. Neat. Cold. No sign of me. Like I'd never lived there at all. Didn't work out. Things changed. That was enough for them. No one pressed. I didn't offer more. I went during the hours I knew she'd be at physical therapy or appointments. Her mother let me in once. Said nothing. Just opened the door, stepped aside, and left me to it. And that was it. I didn't take much. I left the key and walked out. I didn't talk about Emily. The wedding invitations never got printed, so no one needed an explanation there. My friends asked what happened. I gave short answers. At work, I picked up more hours. Took travel projects. Kept busy. My parents asked once if we were still getting married. I told them it was cancelled. My dad nodded. My mother said she was sorry to hear that. For a long time, I didn't think about her. New apartment. New commute. Nothing extravagant. Just different enough. Just another routine corporate mixer. I scanned the room, looking for my team. At times she made coffee and forgot to add sugar. The way she used to flip through a book before actually reading it. Lanyard around her neck with her name printed in bold. Occasionally, someone would ask if I had ever been engaged. I'd say yes. And when they asked what happened, I'd say, it didn't work out. No one asked for more. How she always turned the volume up exactly 3 notches when a movie started. Then, sometimes, out of nowhere, I did. I didn't want the scene. The explanation. The small talk. Not the hospital moments or the diagnosis. Just random memories. Then the memories would pass. And I'd keep going. 2 years went by like that. Then the third one started. By that time, I'd transferred to another branch office in another city. I didn't date much. Not for any real reason. Work kept me moving. Weekends were quiet. Then one afternoon, I walked into a conference hall for a networking event. That's when I saw her. Emily. Standing near a display booth. Hair tied back. She hadn't changed much. A little thinner maybe. But still her. She didn't see me right away. I turned to leave. But she turned. Our eyes met. She froze. For a moment, we both stood still. People passed between us. Voices carried around us. But neither of us moved. Then she walked toward me. I didn't speak first. She did. Hi, she said. Hi, I replied. She looked down, then back up. You look different. I said, it's been a while. Yeah, she nodded. We didn't say anything else for a few seconds. Then she asked, can we talk? Somewhere outside? I nodded. We walked out to a side patio behind the venue. Empty chairs. Small tables. Quiet. We sat. And then she spoke. We sat across from each other on the patio. A small table between us. The air was quiet except for traffic somewhere in the distance. No distractions. No excuses to avoid the conversation. She didn't rush into it. Just looked around for a while, then folded her hands on the table. I waited. I've thought about that day a lot, she finally said. I didn't answer. I let her continue. I know what it looked like. I know how it felt for you when I didn't say anything. Still, I stayed silent. Emily took a breath. I should have said something. Anything. But I didn't. I just froze. I nodded. You did. A few days later. Quietly. Just me and the doctor. I didn't know what you'd say if you knew. I thought, maybe you'd feel trapped. I thought maybe if I told you after we got married, you'd resent me. And if I told you before, you'd walk away. He said the damage was worse than expected. They had to remove more than they thought. Which meant I wouldn't be able to have kids. She looked down, then back at me. You want to know why? I didn't respond. But she explained anyway. They told me after surgery, she said. She paused. I didn't react. I didn't know how to tell you. You were wrong, I said. I know, she replied. We sat in silence again. I never wanted to hurt you, she added. You didn't hurt me, I said. You hesitated. That was all it took. Just of what it would mean. I figured if you left, at least it was before everything got too real. I was afraid, she said. Not of you. I'm not telling you this to fix anything. I just thought you should know. No. I think I've said what I needed to say. So you let me believe you didn't want to marry me. I leaned back. I didn't know what else to do. People inside the conference were still mingling. Voices echoed faintly through the glass doors. We both stared at the ground for a while. Then she looked up. I nodded slowly. So you never stopped loving me? No, she said. That never changed. Then why now? I asked. Why say all this now? Because I saw your face when I turned around, she said. Back in there. You look like someone who deserved the truth. I didn't answer. She stood up, adjusted her lanyard. Anyway, thank you for listening. I stood up too. You heading back inside? She shook her head. She turned and walked off the patio. I didn't follow. I just watched her leave, again. But this time, there was no misunderstanding. Only clarity. I didn't go back into the conference. After she left the patio, I stood there for a while, watching the empty space where she had been. The chair was still pushed back. The glass door was still slightly open. But she was gone. I didn't feel angry. There wasn't any resentment. Just distance. 3 years of it. I walked to the parking lot. My team was still inside. I texted them I had to step away early. Not with emotion, just as a fact. She had been infertile since the surgery. She didn't know how to tell me. She thought I'd leave anyway. So when I asked if she still wanted to marry me, she hesitated. And I took it as a no. Not because I was hurt, but because my mind kept running through details, how quickly things changed, how one pause set everything off. No explanation. Just a line. I didn't expect her to reach out to me either. We had said what needed to be said. Back in my apartment that night, I replayed the conversation. A misunderstanding, maybe. Or just bad timing. I didn't sleep much. Over the next week, I didn't reach out to her. But on Friday afternoon, I got a message. It was short. Do you want to grab coffee? Just talk. No pressure. Emily, I read it twice. Then replied, sure. Saturday? She sent the location. 10:30 a.m. neutral place. Busy enough to feel casual. Quiet enough to talk. I showed up 5 minutes early. She was already there, sitting near the back, 2 cups on the table. She had ordered for both of us. Still remember my order? I asked as I sat down. She looked up. Same as it was 3 years ago, she said. Didn't think it changed. It hadn't. We didn't dive into anything heavy. The first 20 minutes were small talk. How work had been. Where she's living now. Some hobbies she picked up along the way. I kept my answers short. She didn't ask much. Neither did I. Then, out of nowhere, she said, you know, I thought about calling you, so many times after you left. I looked at her. Why didn't you? She exhaled. Because I figured I already gave you my answer. You asked. I hesitated. You walked out. That felt like the ending. I nodded. I took the silence as a no. She looked down. It wasn't. But I understand why it felt like one. We both sat with that. Quiet. Not awkward, just honest. Then she asked, do you ever wonder what would be happened if I answered differently that day? I shrugged. Sometimes. But wondering doesn't change anything. She nodded. That's true. A few more quiet minutes passed. Then she said, I'm not here to start over. I'm not expecting anything. I guess I wanted to know if we could talk. Like 2 people who once meant something to each other. I nodded. We are doing that. She smiled. Just a little. Yeah, we are. We kept it light after that. No mention of the ring. No talk about the wedding. Or the hospital. None of it. By noon, we finished our coffee. She stood up first. Well, she said, thanks for showing up. You too. She looked like she had more to say. But didn't. Just gave me a small wave, and walked out of the cafe. I stayed for a while after. No regrets. No expectations. Just quiet. Just a conversation that finally filled the silence we left behind. I didn't expect to see Emily again after that coffee meeting. We didn't make plans for a second one. There were no promises, no vague suggestions of let's keep in touch. It ended simply. Like closure. But 2 weeks later, I saw her again. This time at a bookstore. I was browsing a shelf when I heard someone say my name. I turned, and there she was, holding a paperback in her hand. We talked briefly. About the book. About what brought each of us there. She was shopping for her niece. I was wasting time before a meeting. This time, she asked if I had lunch plans. I didn't. So we went across the street to a deli. We ate, talked. Again, nothing heavy. No mention of what had happened between us. No reflection on how we ended. When we said goodbye, she said, I'll probably see you around. And she did. Over the next month, it kept happening. A message here. A coffee there. A chance meeting followed by an unplanned meal. It wasn't intentional. But it wasn't coincidence either. One evening, she texted, "If you're free, I have 2 tickets to a concert. Thought you might like it." I noticed she still did that thing where she stirred her drink absent-mindedly when she wasn't speaking. I went. It wasn't a date. At least we didn't call it that. We sat beside each other. We didn't hold hands. We didn't mention the past. But it felt easy. Natural. Afterward, we got dinner. She laughed at something I said. It was the first time I realized how familiar she still felt. Her sister greeted me like we were old friends. We talked for over an hour. Nothing uncomfortable. No questions about the past. At the end of the night, she said, "Thanks for coming." And I said, "Thanks for asking." They were having dinner nearby. It was casual, she said. That was it. Still no talk about getting back together. Still no mention of what we had been. But something was shifting. A week later, she asked if I wanted to meet her sister. I agreed. We met at a small restaurant. After they left, I walked Emily to her car. Before she got in, she turned and asked, "Do you ever think about us?" I said, "Sometimes." She looked at me. Me too. Then she got in and drove off. I stood there for a moment before heading home. Whatever this was between us, it wasn't planned. It wasn't rushed. It just kept happening. Quietly. Consistently. Without promises. Without labels. But it was happening. And neither of us was walking away this time. Weeks passed. By then, it became routine. Seeing Emily. Talking to her. Sharing space. It didn't feel strange anymore. It didn't carry the weight it used to. It just was. We still hadn't labeled anything. No one asked where it was going. No one mentioned the past directly. But we both understood something was forming again. She had downsized her place after recovery and was now shifting into something slightly larger. Nothing fancy. Just a little more space. One Saturday afternoon, she invited me to help her move a few boxes. Then sat on the floor of her new living room, surrounded by half-unpacked items and unopened furniture. I showed up early. We moved boxes. Cleaned shelves. Picked up takeout on the way back. "I don't know why I bought a couch that needs tools," she said, holding a screwdriver. "It's weird how easy this feels." I shrugged. "Keeps things interesting." We spent the next hour putting it together. No arguments. Just work. Somewhere during the process, she looked at me and said, I didn't reply. I just nodded. Later that evening, I helped set up her internet and left. The next morning, she texted, "Thanks. I wouldn't have done half of it without you." I replied, "You would have managed eventually." She replied, "Still. I'm glad it was you." I wanted to say yes. But I couldn't. Not with what I had just found out. One night, she invited me over for dinner. She cooked. I brought dessert. After we ate, we sat on her balcony. The city lights below, the sound of cars, the quiet space between us. Then she said, "I was scared that night." I knew which night she meant. Better to lose you that way than disappoint you later. When you asked me if I'd still marry you, I listened. I thought you'd want a family. Kids. And I couldn't give you that. So I thought. I looked ahead. You didn't trust me to make that decision for myself. She nodded. I didn't. That was my mistake. We didn't say much else after that. Just sat. The silence wasn't heavy this time. No attempts to go back to the way things were. It was honest. We didn't rush anything. There were no sudden gestures. We were just building again, slowly, from where we were now. It wasn't about making up for lost time. It was about being present. And staying there. We never picked a day and said we were officially back together. There was no title, no label, no announcement. But it was clear. We spent time together. We texted daily. If one of us cooked, the other came over. If we had plans, we included each other. And neither of us saw anyone else. It was just understood. One day, I got a call from an old friend. He was in town for a weekend, wanted to catch up. He invited me to dinner, said to bring someone if I wanted. Without thinking much about it, I said I'd bring Emily. When we arrived, he smiled and said, "It's good to see you two again." We nodded. Didn't correct him. She didn't flinch. I didn't either. That night, she asked, "Was that strange for you?" "No," I said. "Me neither," she replied. Another week passed. She invited me to a family dinner, small, just her sister and a cousin visiting from out of town. Left them at my place. Unspoken, but clear. She was staying over more often now. Nothing formal. We sat around eating pasta, talking about random things. No tension. No awkward glances. After dinner, her sister pulled me aside. "You're good for her," she said. I didn't say much. Just nodded. When Emily came over later that week, she brought a few things, some clothes, a book, a toothbrush. There was no question about it anymore. We were back. But this time, slower. Quieter. No rush. No ceremony. No pressure. We had done it once the other way, fast, formal, with a set timeline. And it had fallen apart with one moment of silence. Now, we were building something that didn't need a deadline. We didn't talk about the future often. Not because we were avoiding it, but because we weren't chasing it like before. Everything felt steady. Not slow, not rushed, just real. I didn't push. I didn't ask for more than what she gave. Emily came over most nights now. Some nights we cooked. Some nights we didn't say much. Just existed in the same space. It worked. She kept her own place, though. Said she needed her space sometimes. I understood that. Her car was in the shop. I said sure. One Friday, she asked if I could pick her up from work. My usual order. I hadn't asked for it. She just remembered. She picked vegetables. I carried the bag. Someone we both knew from years ago saw us. Walked over and smiled. When she got in, she handed me a coffee. Small things like that became the norm. Familiar. Comfortable. One weekend, we went to the farmer's market together. "You two, still together?" they asked. We looked at each other. Emily replied first. "Yeah, we are." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. It wasn't a big moment. But it was the first time she said it out loud. Later that night, we were watching a movie. She turned and asked, "Do you think we're different now?" Inside was the ring I had bought for her years ago. I had never gotten rid of it. Just kept it buried under some old receipts and papers. "From before?" I asked. "Yeah." I paused. Just held it for a moment. Then put it back. "Yeah. But not in a bad way." She nodded. "Me too." That was the whole conversation. The next morning, I found a box in my closet. I didn't open it. I wasn't thinking about proposals. I was just remembering how far we'd come. This wasn't about going back. It was about continuing forward. At our own pace. Without pressure. Without noise. Just two people still choosing to show up. Another month passed. Then another. There was no big shift. Just small moments stacking up. She left more things at my place. I started cooking for two without thinking. Her toothbrush stayed in the bathroom. Her shoes at the door. One night, she said, "I'm thinking of ending the lease on my apartment." I nodded. "Makes sense." She paused. "That okay with you?" "It's your call," I said. "I know. But I want it to be ours now." This time, not like a visitor. This time, we moved them into what was now our shared space. Just a shift that felt natural. Not once. The next week, she packed up her place. I helped move boxes again. No contract. No formal decision. We lived together for nearly 6 months without discussing marriage. Then one Sunday morning, while eating breakfast, she asked, "Do you ever think about that day?" I knew which one. "The hospital?" I said. "Yeah." That day I hesitated. "I think about what might have been different if you hadn't. And I don't regret how it turned out." She nodded. "Me neither." Then, without moving, she added, "If you asked again now, I wouldn't hesitate." I looked at her. And I didn't ask again. Because I didn't need to. She already answered. We didn't need a second proposal. The commitment had been rebuilt, quietly, steadily. No ring necessary. Not this time. We didn't plan a wedding. There was no guest list. No venue. No date circled on a calendar. One evening, we were sitting on the balcony. Dinner was done. The plates were still on the table. She had her legs tucked under her, wearing an old hoodie of mine. She looked over and said, "This is enough for me." I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. We didn't need a ceremony. We had already made the decision that mattered. We chose to stay. To build something again, not from where we left off, but from where we were now. Months passed. Life stayed simple. We worked. Came home. Cooked together. Traveled sometimes. Took turns doing laundry. Fixed light bulbs. Paid bills. Talked about nothing. People still asked, "When are you two getting married?" Smile. We'd shrug. Some didn't get it. But we did. One evening, I found the old ring box again. Same drawer. Same spot. I opened it for the first time in years. The ring still fit in my hand the way it always had. When I showed it to her, she didn't say anything right away. Just looked at it. Then she said, "You can keep it. Or not. It's your choice. We'll find a use for it someday. Or maybe we won't. Doesn't matter." I asked, "Want me to put it back where it was?" She smiled a little. "No. Leave it out." And she was right. It didn't. In the end, there was no grand reconciliation. No big moment. No final scene. Just two people who had every reason to walk away, but chose not to. That was enough. And it still is.